And she's ready to bracket. I use the rhythm for giving, so I keep giving it loving. And every time I go party, you better get up or something, because our people have rhythm. So when you see us, we're jumping. So
written and arranged and produced by Ed Bentley, featuring Faye Jones and Amy Hendricks on the rap. Sweat It Out, Kolomashi is out now and available on all online stores and distributed by DistroKid. Sweat It Out is out on all your major and social downloads. Get your copy now and watch the video on Ed Bentley YouTube channel. Do the Kolomashi.
From William Klein Bailey, featuring 4 amazing tracks like Lush, Melody of Love, and Mellow Moods. A blend of soul and jazz. Capture the rapture in the rhythm. Available on Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon Music, Deezer, Napster, Tidal, and Pandora. Get your copy now.
Eclectic Boutique are proud sponsors of Feverity Radio. Eclectic Boutique inspired by 50s and 60s African fashion nostalgia, yet quintessentially British with a London accent, creating custom-made orders for special occasions. Eclectic Boutique create unique hair and clothing accessories that are quirky, classic and stylish for both men and women. Eclectic is a zero-waste design boutique, sourcing distinctive and colourful textiles from remnants, making most of their items one of a kind. You can find Eclectic Boutique on Instagram and Facebook. For more information, email eclecticboutique@gmail.com or visit the website www.eclecticboutique.com.
In diversity, this is Fefferity Radio.
For more information, email eclecticboutique@gmail.com or visit the website www.eclecticboutique.com.
In diversity, this is Fefferity Radio.
Yes, this is the Eclectic Goddess here with the Speaker Truth Show and my very special guest, Sister Ret'sepile Makamane. Makamane. I keep saying it wrong. Oh my God, my pronunciation. The curse of not having an African palate.
Oh no, you have it. It comes back,
Yes,
It
I
comes
got to
back.
reclaim it. So, do you want to do an introduction to our listeners? I did a very, very brief introduction, but I think you should introduce yourself.
Oh, thank you. My name is Ret'sepile Makamane. I hail from a very, very tiny mountainous country called Lesotho. It's completely landlocked by South Africa. So if South Africa had a small baby inside, Lesotho would be it.
All right, that's a
That
nice
is-
way to, yeah.
We cannot cross to any other country without crossing into South Africa. I'm currently studying at SOAS, University of London, and I'm studying African literature. And my focus is the aesthetics of African literature, particularly indigenous aesthetics of the literature, because I feel that our critical analysis or study of African literature is always not focused on the roots, the culture, and the languages and the traditions within which these literatures are produced. So that is the focus of my PhD. And yeah, I've been living in London for the past 4 years, and one of the best things that have happened is that I've met people like Goddess Isis,
Thank you, that's very kind.
who's a true blessing, I think, to all Black women and men.
Thank you. Thank you. So it's so important that we have a wonderful woman like Sister Ret'sepile here on our International Women's Month special. We're going to talk a lot more about the work that Sister Ret'sepile is doing around literature and the importance actually of the recognition of indigenous African literature, and why it's also important that we recognize, we acknowledge, and we celebrate literature in indigenous languages. I think we can have a talk about that as well. Now, we've got a lot of music to get through, and we're going out live on YouTube on Feferity London. If you want to see the beautiful Sister Ret'sepile, as well as hear her beautiful tones, you can tune in and catch us there. Of course, we are on Feferity Radio. You can give us a heads up, send us a message on 0730-541-7668. And if you're outside the UK, you drop that first zero and put a +44, stick with 730-541-7668. So we're going to play another one of your tunes, another one of your selections. What is this tune and why did you choose it?
This is Michelle Ndegoshello. The song is called God Shiva. I love this song in a sense because I think she's one of the women I think in the music industry that has gone, I think, beyond the confines of what instrument is played by what person. As a woman who plays bass, she just owns it and brings that like entire self to that kind of presentation of the music. And I just feel like her music crosses so many lines, so many limitations. And this song, God Shiva, for me, it's about this sense of divinity, but not external, inside of us. So I see that as like a Black woman, like inhabiting and occupying that space of godliness, like it is inside of us.
Beautiful. I love that introduction. Let's hear the tune.
Just a vision birthed into this body. I accept my praise, my blame, my joy, my sorrow. I realize we are, in truth, the truth we seek. God, perfect this very moment. God, Shiva, my love supreme, imminent love, transcendent reality. My love, Shiva. My supreme reality. So desire no more what you already possess. You are already free. Your divine nature is to love. My soul identical to God. On a journey to return to my Creator. To a peace far beyond passion. State of bliss. God, she, my soul. Swimming in love. Transcendent reality. My love, how sweet the fruits of His love. My supreme reality. You are my mind of the mind, my eye of eye. The life of my life. You are my mind of the mind, my eye of eye. Through you, my soul, I have realized. Free me from this life. God, Shiva. Similar love, transcendent reality. My love, Shiva, hear my prayers. My supreme reality. You are the truth you seek. Transcendent reality. The truth you seek. I am no longer just a vision. My supreme reality. You are the truth you seek. I no longer desire. I no longer desire. Free me from this world. Free me from my body. Transcendent my love. Free me from this world. My supreme reality. My supreme my supreme reality.
Yes, you are listening to Feferity Radio. This is the Eclectic Goddess with Sister Queen Ret'sepile.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit more about African literature and why it's important to bring it, to celebrate it really and to acknowledge it. Where did your interest begin with literature, and particularly with, obviously African literature? Because, even in Africa, listeners, sadly, a lot of the literature in schools and in universities is European. So there's still a movement or a need to reclaim our own literature.
So the one interesting thing, and I will refer to one of my favorite Pan-Africanist writers here, Cabral, who says when movements like negritude attempt so hard to go back to the past, to the roots, to the sources, what they don't realize is that the sources actually do not need any post-colonial or any decolonization, because the sources, this is the rural pastoral areas, have had a continuation or a progression of the arts, particularly literature, verbal art, storytelling, that we urbanized people, educated people, have detached ourselves from. So if you go to a small village and you ask people or you tell people we have to decolonize, they'll probably be shocked, like, what are we decolonizing?
Yeah.
So I grew up in a small village in Lesotho, very far in the mountains, and my grandmother was a storyteller. And this is not very special that my grandmother was a storyteller. Everybody's family had somebody who was a brilliant storyteller. So I know that in the African tradition, or the African tradition that I come from, and I've seen this reading literatures from, say, Nigeria or other parts of Africa, Central Africa, East Africa, even North Africa, which sometimes you would think is slightly different culturally. But you see this sense of, it's like medicine. In the family, you have this kind of inheritance, or a gene or a DNA thing that is passed throughout the lineage. So you would have somebody who in the family who is a storyteller, in the same way that they would say you would have somebody in a person who's a diviner, a seer, or a healer. So we have this kind of culture. In my family, my grandmother was the greatest storyteller on earth. I would count her among greatest literature makers. And I grew up being trained to tell stories. So you would have to mimic her. So she would tell stories in the evening. And let me tell you, these were like long epics that would just go on and on. You just want to go home before she falls asleep because you want to hear the story. So the second part of literature for me was going to primary school and high school. And I grew up in the 90s. This was the era of the Heinemann series, which I think Achebe managed to edit, I think, 2 African collections. So they had West Africa, North Africa, East Africa, Southern African writers, upcoming writers. Ngugi wa Thiong'o was a small boy. Achebe himself was a young man at that time. Even Caribbean literature to me came through those series at school. So the culture of being told a story around a fire, growing up as a child in the village, especially in winter when it's snowing, story time.
You're from the part of Africa where it snows.
It snows in my country.
I think it's important people to know that we do have snow in Africa. We have everything in Africa.
We have everything. We have all the weathers in Africa. So that is how I came into storytelling. In a sense, I wouldn't say I came into storytelling myself or I came into literature because of the culture that I grew up in. I was bound, like literature came to me, literature found me.
It's your destiny.
It was my destiny. Like we have a very rich culture of poetry, praise poetry, poetry for animals, divination poetry. If you go and see a healer, he will do or she will do poetry to tell you what the ancestors are saying, what the ails in the community that you're in or in your family. So we are a very, very poetic culture. And this is not specifically a Sesotho thing. The most amazing thing is if you actually look at what these earlier anthropologists have done throughout the entire African continent, you will find more organized and like furnished African literature in orality than in written literature. We think African literature has been written so much. The novel has taken over. We're such a writing culture. Actually, we need to go to the archives and find every single culture in Africa. And I don't want to talk about countries because I'm not into this idea of nation state. But every culture has produced such intense, diverse, immense literature that as an African child, for me, is almost automatic to specialize in literature. It's who I am. Storytelling and literature, all forms of literature, poetry, prose, epic, song, riddles, proverbs. They belong to me.
Do we in Africa separate them out? Because, we have a tendency in the West to compartmentalize everything. Everything's in boxes. Do we separate poetry from storytelling or from prose? Or is it all part of an oral tradition and it's just somebody could tell you a poem one night and tell you a story another night?
It's in 2 ways. And I'll tell you one thing, because unlike written literature, the form of oral literature is so... what is this word? It's so fine, like it's so tuned that it's gone through a lot of years and practice and really good specialists like griots, storytellers. So these people actually care deeply about form and structure and content. Whereas written literature, you could say it's still young. So in terms of whether we fragment them in the same way that Western literature does, we do and we don't. So sometimes you can find poetry happening at like ceremonies of initiation, girls' initiation, boys' initiation, or dignitaries visiting like the king or the chief or an important person who's from outside. So that kind of praise poetry happens at that time. And then another form of poetry, which is like cows poetry, where I come from, it will be specialized by head boys. So I wouldn't know. My brothers would be very, very good in such poetry because they go to the landscape with the cows every day, come back, and they sing this kind of poetry. They have musical instruments that accompany them. So it's a kind of not every head boy can do this. It's actually a very refined kind of literature. When you look at
it's quite specific.
It's very specific
Yeah.
in parts, but when you look at other forms like Central Africa, West Africa, and East Africa that have epic forms, that long pieces of literature, then you find a very interesting thing where you have a merge of these things, where you have poetry, you have history, and then you have prose. Because of the length of them, these kind of festivals, it's like Nigerian drama, it's like Nigerian Yoruba drama. You have long days of the same ritual and drama, and you have to have different formats because you will not be able to keep the audience engaged and sustained. So in other cultures that have like long epics or very developed epic cultures, you do find mixtures. And in the format, there's African oralist called Isidore Okpeo who says that how an African child gets used to storytelling and this diversity very quickly is how the riddle, like how they will play riddle as the sun is setting, and then it goes on, and then this riddling becomes metaphoric, so that by the time it's nighttime and it's quiet and the real fable or the epic or the story starts, the mind is ready because it has played this game, this riddling games.
So
there's a kind
preparing for receiving.
Yeah. So the genres mix, I think, in that way where we tell stories.
Because I always grew up, in Trinidad. We do the riddles and we do the Anansi, and you do a lot of the sayings. My grandmother always had a saying. Show me your company and I'll tell you who you are. Or, and it's interesting because we grew up with that as well in the Caribbean, and that obviously comes directly from our African, heritage. And also, I was thinking about one of the, Ami Césaire. I just love his writing, and I always found that his writing it's political, but it's poetic, and I just found it's fantastic the way he writes. So much. It's literally poetry, but he's actually critiquing political systems.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a poet by nature. I think he kind of like doubles with politics.
He does.
Because for me, I love him. I love him both sides, like when he's writing poetry and when he's writing political commentary. The truth about his poetry is, for me, this sense of, and Langston Hughes does the same with his poetry, this sense of connection with the African essence. And I'm not even talking geographically here. I'm just talking about like the real strong cultural presence of Africanness in all of us, no matter where we go, no matter what kind of brutality the world imposes on us. And when you see that, it's something that I was saying at the university the other day, that if we talk about Pan-Africanism or we talk about negritude, we need to look at it in literature. We need to look at what Caribbean literature, African-American literature, West African literature, Southern African literature has done throughout historical periods of struggle, periods of celebration. All our cultural and artistic expression connects us so deeply. We are so connected in literature. It's incredible. It's amazing.
And also, I was on the bus earlier, I mentioned, and one of the people that we were talking about was Claudia Jones, who we always...
Yeah.
And I always use Claudia Jones's quote, which is, "A people's art is the genesis of their freedom." And obviously, Claudia was a Trinidadian like me, born in Belmont. I always big that up. But that's the nature of it. It's like this literature, this poetry, this storytelling, it's also connected to our freedom, to our liberation. It's so entwined with it.
It is, and I think when you look at now coming to written literature, like genres of the African novel, when you look at the intensity of the African realist novel, this is like the 60s, 70s, 80s novel, which emerged because or out of the condition that the Africans were going through in terms of seeking independence, striving and picketing and literally rioting for their liberation from colonialism. That literature has a very, very specific taste. And it's quite amazing because do we say literature is a kind of a testimony of what we are going through, or is a charge forward to the future, what kind of future we're looking for, recalling the past. So in that way, for me, literature is, it's a liberatory process. It's a political process. It's also a very, very, very significant cultural process of self-reclamation and who we are, a self-articulation of who we are. Because the other problem I think I find, particularly in the West, is that there's this struggle that Black people are not seen, this invisibility of Black people. But I think what literature and the arts do is internally, it helps us see ourselves the way we are, as beautiful as we are, you know.
In all our fullness.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk a bit more about this really fascinating subject and really important subject. But before we do, we need to get another tune in, because we got to get all these tunes in, sister. So, you know,
I sounded too much music, did I?
No, you didn't. I mean, we've got a beautiful Nina Simone there. We've got a Billie Holiday. We've got a Lauryn Hill. I mean,
I would like to. Can we play Nina Simone? And this is a very, very, very important song, I think, adding to the protest that we went to last week, in support and in outrage for Child Q. And this song for me is very important. I listened to it after that protest when we came back from that protest in Hackney.
And this is for women.
Yeah. This is not for women.
Oh, brown baby. Sorry, apologies, listeners.
No, brown baby is for women is for us, the big women. But for our little sister, this song I chose it for her, to dedicate it to her.
Beautiful. Let's hear the voice of the great, great, great Nina Simone.
Brown baby, brown baby, as you grow up, I want you to drink from the plenty cup. I want you to stand up tall and proud, and I want you to speak up clear and loud, brown baby. Brown baby, brown baby. As years go by, I want you to go with your head up high. I want you to live by the justice code, and I want you to walk down freedom's road, you little brown baby. So lie away sleeping, lie away singing, lie away sleeping, lie away safe in my arms till your daddy It makes me glad. You're gonna have things that I never had. When out of all men's hearts all hate is hurled, sweetie, you're gonna live in a better world, brown baby, brown baby, brown baby.
Yes, of course, that was Brown Baby by the late, great Nina Simone. Absolutely beautiful. Her voice.
She's incredible.
She's a storyteller.
She's an amazing storyteller. Nina Simone can take a song written by anybody, a flat song, and turn it into magic. Turn
Yeah,
it
she
into
certainly
magic
can.
instantly.
She's one of those people. I mean, I did quite a few versions yesterday on the other show, playing songs that were like really well-known songs, but done by someone who doesn't normally do them, a version. And Nina Simone literally can take anything.
Anything.
And make it better.
I'm just like, stop singing, guys. Write your music for Nina Simone. Just let her do it. Because she's a rich, diverse storyteller. And her voice, the things she does with her voice are incredible. Every performance with Nina Simone, it feels like a live performance.
And so when you hear someone like Nina Simone and some of the other amazing, Aretha Franklin, some of these amazing women of African heritage, from whether they be from the Americas or in Europe or whatever, do you see, can you make that connection between that history, that oral tradition on the continent? Is it present?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, it's there's a really amazing book by Soyinka. I think it's called Myth in the African World. So what he does is an entire study of the Caribbean and the cultures of theater there. And for him, he traces this sort of like trinity between the Caribbean and the new kind of forms of, say, spirituality like Christianity and Yoruba spirituality, and he sees in the dramas and the theater of the Caribbean the exact living memory of these places in West Africa. And I do see, in particularly music, I think in the music of Black women in the diaspora, there is an echo of the African landscape every day, all the time. Even the beat itself, you can feel that sense of like African beat. Nina Simone does that. She does that, and she says it to her audience. Like, all her live performances, like, we're gonna go home now. Like, we're gonna go where the beat comes from. And you see it in jazz as well. I think somebody like Coltrane's music, I think, tries to sort of or within itself already with that kind of like blues culture, like Mali sort of cultures and West African cultures, where you find these big orchestras in places like Mali, like these big desert orchestras, Tauric people, and you see the link between the blues and West African cultures and African cultures. It's music and storytelling is incredible because it's so in sync. These people could take Christian spirituals and just turn them into magic overnight because of that African expression.
Well, for me, it's a very kind of circular thing. It's like it came from the continent. It went into the diaspora. It created its own versions and iterations in the diaspora. Then it went back to the continent, and the continent took it, and then they mixed it up, and it just keeps going around. So like now we've got Afro beats.
But,
if you look at the history of Afro beats and where that came from and how that kind of, a lot of Afro beats has very much that kind of like hip hop vibe, or it might have a kind of a reggae vibe to it. It's all that, and it's gone back to the continent. They've taken it and they've created something original again.
My sister goddess, this is how we've survived. These people will not hear us. They don't know what we're talking about. We are communicating with each other, and it's like, this is African culture. This is African soul. The soul is us, baby.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
So in your role, I don't know if the listeners know what it means or what it entails to be doing research. What as a PhD researcher, what exactly are you doing? Just so that people are clear, what is the role of it? What does it encompass?
So as a PhD researcher, you read so many books.
That's good.
You read too many books. If you're doing your PhD research in literature, it's beautiful because you're reading so many stories. But you also have to read critical books, that is books about books, that is books about literature. And so you do two things. You read a lot of books, and at the same time, you write a lot of words. So you are going to, in the end, produce a text or a book that is 100,000 words maximum.
You heard that? 100,000 words.
I'm trying to produce a
that's a lot of words.
So you have to write. You have to write quite a lot. And the other thing that I think a lot of us PhD candidates or researchers don't do is to sort of immerse ourselves into societies, because at the end of the day, and I have this really incredible friend Aisha, who's interested in literature but also can stand outside it and say, when you're doing this kind of literary analysis, what does it mean for me as a reader, as a consumer and a lover of African literature? And in that way,
because it's like that's the balance. I'm just wondering, because obviously there's you putting yourself into that dissertation, you and your creativity and your art. We'll come on to talk a bit about your story writing as well. But also then there's that academic side, and I just wondered how you balance all that kind of critical analysis and stuff. How do
you go into two places? For me, and it's probably because of the way my brain is structured, it's not possible to be an academic and to be writer, storyteller at the same time. So if I'm in a fictional mode, I really am not an academic. But if I am in an academic mode, that particular time that I'm writing and reading intensely, my friends sometimes say, for the past 2 weeks, you've been sounding like a book. You sound like a book. And it's a good thing to do it in small segments, small doses, because you don't want to be this kind of academics who are speaking not only very inaccessibly, but who are so absorbed inside that specific area of study that they have no sense of what's happening in the world, what's happening in the neighborhood.
I wonder about that balance, because obviously the subject, the literature that you're engaging with, and the poetry, and especially the storytelling and the oral tradition, it's not really academic. It transcends academia, but at the same time, there is an analysis of it which is academic, and I just wonder how that all works.
So there are two things. I think I'll quote Bell Hooks here, and Bell Hooks loves theory. Like, she is academic proper, and for her, I don't like theory. I don't in the beginning, when I started this PhD, I said my struggle was going to be theory, to be speaking about post-structuralism, postmodernism, modernism, post-colonial theories. I will not be able to do that because of the detachment and the distance that I think these theories have, which is away from African literature. So I had a very incredible supervisor who was a Somali poetry specialist, who said, you need to theorize the text themselves. You need to make the text theorize themselves. There is nothing that theory has done that these texts have not done. So there's nothing that Western theory has done that African theories have not done. And this brings me very, very, very intimately and closely to Bell Hooks, because Bell Hooks says that our cultures, our people are theorizing all the time. Black people are in debate, in conversation, in discourse every single day about issues, particularly struggling liberation and political freedom. We are in these discussions every day because they are real. They are immediate.
That's what we're living.
These concepts are concerns that are real to us. So if you're going to talk about theory, you need to link it very quickly to the fact that my people are theorizing, have been theorizing every day in community meetings, in protests. They're not just standing there without a plan or without a theoretical, how do we go forward? When that protest ended last week, with the sisters, they said we will march from here to Parliament. That is theory and practice. We connected together to be in outrage, to say what is the plan. We will hold who is accountable, or at least show, even if the system is against us.
Yes.
So that kind of lift theory and practice for me is what I try to do in my PhD, and I kind of try to encourage young Black academics to get into that habit of, first of all, own it. You already have it. Don't stress. You already have it, and do it.
And also, you, as part of your work, your research, you're also teaching?
I'm also teaching, yes.
And how is that?
Teaching is really beautiful because it's like duty. Teaching help us to actually contribute. Because I think when you teach, particularly in predominantly white universities, which is what every UK university will be like, we live in white people's
world.
We live in the white people's world. But you see something really tragic, which is that Black and Asian students score much less than their white counterparts, regardless of what class or environment similarities they come from. So you can see that there is an institutional mechanism of racism inside the structure that is really working against Black people. So when you are a teacher, you not only try to give a sense of extra dedicated attention to Black students that might be there, because it's your duty as a Black person to make them achieve and pass and graduate. But at the same time, you try to create a kind of a classroom where people understand that a privileged body or a privileged voice is not automatic and should not continue like that.
Yeah.
That every person in the classroom has to be liberated. And this is, again, something that I have learned from Bell Hooks, that a liberated classroom holds the teacher not only accountable, but the teacher is equal. You have to present the students, because African students, for example, they come from such a multiplicity of cultures. They already know so many things from their aunties, their uncles, what they read, their music. So you come to a classroom, you silence a student like that. Not only has that student lost, you've also lost as a teacher.
Yes. You've lost their input.
You've lost their input because they educate you.
It should be a two-way.
It should be a
two-way transaction.
The
living and the learning. Beautiful, beautiful.
We should release the power of control of the classroom.
Most definitely. So let's try and get another tune in, and then we're going to come and talk a bit about you as a writer, because we have to get that in. So what do you want me to play next?
I would love for you to play Lauryn Hill and Bob Marley.
Okay, let's go. Turn your lights down low.
Turn your lights down low and pull your window curtain. Oh, let your moon come shining into our life again. Saying, ooh, it's been a long, long time. I get this message for you, girl, but it seemed I was never on time. Still I wanna get through to you, girl, on time, on time. Wow. I want to give you some love. I want to give you some good, good loving. Oh, yeah, I want to give you some good, good loving. Turn your lights down low. Never, never try to resist.
Oh no, nah, nah, nah. Oh, let your love come shining in, nah, 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 into our lives again. Nah, nah, nah. Saying, ooh, I love you, I love you, I love you. And I want you to know right now, know right now. Ooh, I love you.
Loving you is like a song I replay every 3 minutes and 30 seconds of every day. And every chorus was written for us to recite. Every beautiful melody of devotion every night. This potion might, this ocean might carry me in the wave of emotion to ask you to marry me. And every word, every second and every third expresses a happiness more clearly than ever heard. And when I play them, every chord is a poem telling the Lord how grateful I am cause I know him. The harmonies possess a sensation similar to your caress. If you asking then I'm telling you it's yes. Stand in love, take my hand in love, God bless. Yes.
I want to give you some good loving. Turn your lights down low.
Right now.
And pull your window curtains.
Right now.
And let your love come tumbling in.
Right now.
Into our lives again.
Said right now.
Yeah. Ooh, it's been a long, long time.
Yeah.
I got this message for you, boy.
But it seemed I was never on time.
Still I wanna get through to you, boy.
Yeah.
On time.
Right now.
On time.
Said right now.
I want to give you some love.
Yeah.
Oh,
I want to give you some good loving.
Can you hear me? Yeah. It's like
I want to give you some good loving.
yeah. It's like
Good, some good.
I want to give you some good loving.
Good.
yeah. Right now.
I wanna give you some good.
Right now. Don't forget passionate babies in the bassinet and be calm, we get ready. Mind steady.
Yeah. Oh, that was a bit of an abrupt stop. I was meant to let that play out and then stop it. Apologies, listeners. That was a beautiful Lauryn Hill, accompanied, of course, by her, I suppose, her father-in-law, but he'd already passed on. On Turn Your Lights Down Low.
Yeah.
What a beautiful song. And we were just commenting on her ability to just use language, this rapping thing that we call it.
Yeah.
Or spoken word.
Yeah.
And so we've, in our last 10 minutes, I mean, I can't believe that hour's gone so quickly. We've literally coming to the end of the show again, and Freestyle will be taking over the control of the studio, and he will have the iconic Winston Barrett coming in at 6 o'clock when he does his Vinyl Saturday session. So in our last 10 minutes, I wanted to just hear a little bit about you as a writer. What do you want to share? I mean, what sort of, where can we also get access to your work? I think that would be great for people to be able to read what you've written. I know you've contributed to some literature.
Let me. There's, I think, 2 or 3 stories that are online that are easily accessible. African Magazine. So if you could just type my name. In fact, if you could just type my name and say short story into Google, you will see 3 stories that are available. So there's African Magazine, and there's Botsotso Magazine, which is BOTSOTSO Magazine. There's a very short piece that I wrote there, which was a kind of a commissioned writing that we were responding to a book on the Rwandan genocide. So we had to read this book, which is like a documentary kind of piece, and we had to write fictionalized accounts of our own response to the book. And it's a very short story. It's called Damien's Shoes, and it's about this. It's kind of like a true story and a fictional story. It's about a man who, during the genocide, was so distraught because his little boy was gone, and he saw a dog with the boy's shoe passing, and he knew. So he had this haunting sort of memory of a boy that is gone, didn't witness the real passing of the boy. So that, I think, moved me very much in terms of my relation or my response to the Rwandan genocide, which is one of the most recent brutal genocides on the African continent. My fiction, again, I think is my fiction writing is kind of influenced by writers, African writers like Ben Okri, Bessie Head from Botswana, and Ole Soyinka. I love Ole Soyinka's plays. They are magical. That man is a genius. And I also love diaspora literatures. I love African American literature quite a lot, and I think African American literature is the literature that actually got me to start to see the connection between the stories that I was told as a child and literature. Like
Alice Walker and
Alice Walker is incredible.
I know her writing.
I can't believe how underrated Alice Walker is. Alice Walker is magic.
Oh, she is. Her and of course Maya Angelou's books.
I love Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou is so sweet because she's actually writing nonfiction in such a prose voice. When you read Maya Angelou, you're like lost because it's so beautiful and so lyrical, but actually it's reality. It's
and
like
Toni Morrison, of course.
Toni Morrison is incredible.
I mean, Toni Morrison's work is so inspiring, and for me as a poet, I feel again I read poetry in her prose.
Yeah, I think she tries to actually make literature poetry.
Yeah,
she does something impossible. She's just like, you will read it or you will not. This is who I am. She's so poetic. Hey, the amount of quotations that I would be taking out of Toni Morrison, I'm telling you, I had a friend who would have a Toni Morrison session. Like every birthday I buy you a Toni Morrison book, you buy me a Toni Morrison book. By the end of the day, we would be sitting there with like 8 books and the quotations, just talking Miss TM speech, like just quoting her lines, because she's that incredible. And for me, literature is truly connected to our lives. Alice Walker gives you the lives of the people or the Black people that she is writing about so vividly, so visually. So my literature has that visual sense because I come from a very visual culture. I see stories in color. Life happens in color. I come from beautiful sunsets and beautiful sunrises. I come from a beautiful landscape that is mountainous. In Southern Africa, if you go further into like Botswana, Zimbabwe, Swaziland, it transforms itself so much. So that landscape talks to me. That landscape is what I miss, or I try to celebrate in my stories, and the kind of African people that are complex and that are living with us, and that you kind of like the kind of characters that you kind of don't see being written about. You see very, I don't know, pale, amiable characters. For me, I like characters that are extremely contradictory because that's how my people are. That's how African people are. African people are very contrary and very intense and beautiful in very intense, complicated and complex ways. And I try to celebrate that, to create a literature that speaks of where I come from, that speaks of those people with love, because I have been taught to love those people and see them as human beings, regardless of their complications and their differences. So I try to bring that multiplicity of an African essence in terms of our characterization, because I always feel like the African character is always either this docile, educated man or a very rebellious, incorrigible African man. We don't speak about the African woman quite a lot, and we don't speak about different kinds of African men, which is the uncles and the cousins and the nieces and the nephews that we're growing up with. Like, where are these lives when we write our literature? Who are we writing about? Who are we writing for? So because I write for African people, I always see the people I grew up with or the places I've been to, Johannesburg, because I lived in Johannesburg. If I write a city story, it's boiling and peppery and crazy and full of love and hope like Johannesburg, and full of contradictions as well. If I write a rural story or a pastoral story, it would be sort of like a Lesotho kind of vibe, slow mountains, cold wind, people that are kind of like slow, and the story kind of revolves around the complication of one person's like small event growing into this big village event, community event.
Wow, so very, very connected.
Yeah, it's very, very, very connected.
It's beautiful. And what about, I mean, we've got a few minutes left. We're going to play out with one of your songs, but I just wonder, you've been here for what, 3 or 4 years. How has living in the UK affected your writing? Has it had any impact at all, or is it simply just a backdrop against which you kind of live?
At a personal level, I'm not able to recognize it. I think somebody who reads my stories or has read them before I left Johannesburg to come and stay in the UK, and then afterwards can maybe make that trace, but I'm not able to do it. And this is what I always say about writer's growth. You do not see your growth as a writer at all. The reader will see it, but you don't, because you're still the same person that you think you were yesterday.
Wonderful. I love that. You're always the same person that you think you were yesterday. It's beautiful. So we're coming to the end of our show, the Speak Your Truth. And I'm the Eclectic Goddess, and I've had my very special guest sister, Ret'sepile, talking about African literature and the work that she's doing, and also as a writer of African, I suppose we call it African literature. What else could it be as an African woman?
Yeah.
So where are you going to next in terms of your work? What is your kind of focus in the next kind of year or so, or the next few months, actually?
My focus is to teach, because I don't think there's enough of us African specialists that are teaching about Africa and talking about Africa. And I think in higher learning institutions, helping and encouraging Africans to excel and be great and serve the purpose of greatness that they came to this earth for.
Asheo. And of course, it's so important that anything about Africa is centered by African people.
Yes.
I mean,
I believe that too.
Yeah.
I believe that.
So I want to thank you so much for giving up your Saturday and coming and joining me.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's been such a beautiful Saturday.
Yes, it certainly has. What a lovely day to do it. And we're going to play you out with your tune, God Bless the Child, because it's a short one. We've only got about a minute. We won't get to play the whole tune, but we've got to end with Billie Holiday. She's an amazing
I know
woman.
you love Billie Holiday.
We all love Billie Holiday. Next week, my special guest will be my brothers from the Afrocentrics, brothers JC Kamau and brother Junior Tomlin, who've joined me before. Have a blessed Saturday, people. This has been the Eclectic Goddess for the Speak Your Truth show, and we will shortly have the man himself freestyle in the studio. Enjoy. God bless the child.
Them that's got shall get, them that's not shall lose. So the Bible said, and it still is news. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own, that's got his own. Yes, the strong gets more while the weak ones fade. Empty pockets don't ever make the grave. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own, that's got his own. Money, you got lots of friends crowding round the door. When you're gone and spending ends, they don't come no more. Rich relations give crust of bread and such. You can help yourself, but don't take too much. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own, that's got his own. Mama may have, Papa may have, but God bless the child that's got his own, that's got his